After everything we've learned until now, we're ready to develop again in the biur on this Maamar, the pasuk in Bechukosei telechu. What we learned in the previous classes, and what's sort of become clear through all of the learning, is that there's two parallel things. One is different madregas of oir, and the other is different madregas of oisies. One is various levels of godliness, lower levels of godliness and higher levels of godliness. Levels of godliness that descend to a level of struggle. Level of godliness that live on a level of harmony. And the highest level of godliness, which is godliness in a state of unity where there's no division. As we discussed last week, the Mishalim of the Mizbeach, the Menorah, and the Ketores. But along with the various levels of godliness, there's various levels of oisios, vessels, carriers of the godliness. There's different words that represent godliness on a level of struggle, Teireh Shebal Peh. There's different words that represent godliness on a level of peace, Teireh Shebiksav. And there's different words of godliness on a level of unity, Luchei Sabris, which is Eisies HaChakika. So we have this interface between higher and lower levels of godliness and higher and lower levels of oisios. And as we discussed at great length over the course of these classes on this particular Maamar, the idea of different levels of oisios. A nefesh maleya oisios, letters exist till atzmus, but there's different types of letters, oisios of ratzon, oisios of tainug, oisios of chochma, oisios of bina, oisios of machshav dibur. Each one is different. So with all this information, we can explain what the pasuk says in Bechukosei telechu. Now, if you can go back 6 weeks, when we started this Maamar, when we learned the very first Maamar, which was actually the Maamar proper, before the biur, the translation of these words were in Bechukosei. When you serve Hashem on a level of Eisies HaChakika, when you connect to godliness, on a level where you're one with godliness, which is even higher than being in harmony with godliness, and it's certainly higher than using godliness to struggle with the world. When one is on a level of chakika, where he's one with godliness, teleochi becomes a mahalach. He's able to progress, to move, to be in motion, and to go from level to level. So the Rebbe says on line 388, the Mavuar Le'il we discussed before, the Kiven, the Tlas Kishin, Inen V'chulu. We know there are three things that are knotted to one another, and they are HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That means Hashem, Eiraisa, the Torah, and Yisrael and the Jewish people, Al-Kain, accordingly. Just as we discussed last week, there's different levels of Torah which is written, where the godliness is descending to letters that are separate from the light. It is only that they're in a state of harmony with the light. And then there's a level of Torah where the letters are carved, where the godliness is not only harmoniously compatible with the words, but there's actually a oneness. The Hainu Teireh Shebiksav HaLuches, which is the two levels of the written Torah and the Luches, says the Rebbe on line 390, K'mei Kain B'chol Nitzitz V'nefesh Elokis, the same is true in each spark, in each godly soul. Yesh Gam Kain Yesh B'chinas El. There's these two levels. And of course you understand and I understand that the Alter Rebbe is referencing these two levels, but actually there's many levels. Just like Torah has 3 levels, so certainly the Neshama has 3 levels. And to be sure, there's many more than 3 levels. But in as much as our conversation is concerned, 2 is sufficient. The way godliness is written into the Neshama of a Yid on a level which is like carved letters. And the way godliness is written into the Neshama of the Yid as written letters. And he explains. 390 Tehine. On the way, we say in the Siddur, Neshama Shenasata Bi. Every morning we say, Elakai, my God. This is one of those things that I find particularly meaningful to myself, where you have a paragraph that begins with Hashem's name. Like, for example, the best examples, Hashem, Kama. So you push it, talking to God directly, and you say, Hashem, open up my lips. So the same is true in the morning. We say, Elakai. And of course the same is also true at the end of Shemini Esrei. We say Elakai, my God, Netzeh L'Sheni Meiro. So in any case, the Alter Rebbe is referencing the beginning of this. The Elakai, my God, Neshama Shenasata Bi, the soul you've given into me, Teherihi at the Barasa V'chulu. I'll get to this in a moment. Just on a technical note, this is just a very interesting way to look at it, and perhaps people don't see it. Every single morning we make a bracha for the guf and a bracha for the neshama. And we make the bracha for the guf first. Asher yatzar es adam b'chochma is the bracha for the guf, and Elokai neshama is the bracha for the neshama. And of course, when we make a bracha for the guf and we make a bracha for the neshama, one of the things which is so significant in these two brachas is mafli lases, the miracle of the fusion and the joining of the neshama and the guf. So in the second bracha, where we say Elokai, my God, neshama shetzati bi tahirahi, the first thing you say is the neshama is pure, and then you say ata varasa, you created it v'chulu. So the Rebbe says, we do akush, everybody knows the famous question, Eich shayach leimer tahirahi kedem shabaras. How can you refer to the neshama as pure before it's created? First Hashem creates the neshama, and then you can define what the neshama is. The ipcha hava leila meima, the order should have been in the reverse. Ata varasa, you created it. And when you created it, tahirahi, it's pure v'chulu. How do you have something which is pure before it's created? This is the kasha. And the teretz is going to be, I'm not going to keep you in suspense, that the meaning of rasa doesn't mean that the neshama was created and that before it didn't exist. The meaning of rasa means now it's created as a separate entity. And before it existed in a state of oneness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the example of Eisei Hakika. And in order to explain this, he brings you a second case. He brings a pasuk. So we say this pasuk in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, and in the Haggadah Shel Pesach also you have this in the Maamar Eim, I think from the Mittel Rebbe in Shara Amunah, which is the Maamar Eim Pesach. The Mittel Rebbe discusses this pasuk at length to reveal the pnimius of the pasuk. Right, the halacha is, the Gemara says that maschilim begnusum esayim b'shvach, but the Pesach say that you start off with the negative and you go to the positive. What's the negative? The negative is Avodah Mayinu, the negative is Aram Yevidavi, and the negative is Mitchila Evdi Avedasara Hayu Aveseinu. And we bring this pasuk. Vayemer Yeshua El Kol Ha'am. Yeshua speaks to the Jewish people. Kei Amar Hashem Elokei Yisrael, has spoken God, who is the God of Eretz of Yidden. Be'ever HaNohar Yoshua V'seichem Me'elam V'gemer. Your father sat on the opposite side of the river, and then of course it says Terach Avi Avram V'Avi Nocha V'Yavdel Kim Achedim. The Alter Rebbe obviously skips those words, and then we say V'Ekech Asavichem Es Avraham. I took your father Avram Me'ever HaNohar from the other side of the river. Ve'elech Eisei B'chol Eretz Canaan. I led him all over the land of Canaan. So Yeshua is giving Yidden Heichacha, direction after crossing over the Yarden. And he makes reference to the fact that our ancestors were once on the other side of the Yarden, that means east of the Jordan, and then they crossed over Evanon to the western side of the Jordan, where the Jewish people now stood as they were about to conquer Eretz Yisrael. So showing Yeshua's making a proposal to the Jewish people, and part of the form that he uses in the proposal is this notion of one side of the river and the other side of the river. The Zohar has a question. My kamashmam is that why is this detail about being on one side of the river and being on the other side of the river such a big deal? Did the Jewish people not know that Avraham Avinu was born in wherever he was born in Ur Kasdim, which is what's now Bavel, and then he moved to a place called Kut, as the Gemara says, and then he moved to Aram Narayim, and then of course he came to Eretz Yisrael. It's indicated in the pasuk Shudav Gadol Chodesh. This is so great and so novel that they were on one side of the river and they crossed over to the opposite side of the river. Afilu lagabi Yeshua, even for Yeshua, Yeshua cannot say, Hezachayin Yidden, listen Jewish people, we were once on the other side of the river and we crossed over to this side. That's what Hashem said. And the question is, what's the big deal about being on one side of the river and the opposite side of the river? Now let me interject. The Hebrew word Ivri, Yivrei in Russian, and in English of course it's Hebrew, in Lashon HaKodesh means a foreigner. The Chazal say that Avraham Avinu was called an Ivri wherever he went. When he was east of the Jordan, they called him an Ivri because he came from the other side. And when he was west of the Jordan, they also called him an Ivri because he came from the east. And in the Lashon HaMedrash, Kol ha'elam kule me'ever echad, Avraham Avinu me'ever echad. The whole world was on one side, and Avraham was on the other side. In other words, the word Ivri contextually connotes a grinid, a foreigner. A Jew is always a foreigner. And that's enough of an explanation. It's a simple explanation for why Yeshua underscores the Eved HaNod aspect, the notion that Jews are always alien. The Jews are always foreigners. But the Zohar asks the question, why is it significant to point out that Yidden come from the other side and Hashem has to say it, and the Zayir is not satisfied with the reason I gave and gives a different reason? On line 401, the Zayir explains, to be sure, the words of the prophet, referencing the fact that the Jewish people were on the other side of the river, and now they're crossing over to the opposite side. There's something very meaningful by Dazu in this informant. It can be explained based on the idea of Yisrael, all of Machshav, the Jewish people entered into Hashem's thought, like we've discussed earlier in the Maamar. At the Eibishter created the whole world with speech, and the exception to, including the Malach, the exception to the world is Neshamas Yisrael, that they were created with thought. Moreover, they were not simply created with thought; they were created what's called Olu b'Machshava. Machshava Allah, a higher thought, and even higher than Machshava Allah is Machshava Stima, a mysterious, a secret thought. This means the root and source of the Jewish neshamas is from the most secret and mysterious thought, which is higher and even higher from thought as it is bepashtus, not only tata but also ilah. Not only a thought which is so formed, it's like thinking about doing something practically where the Eisis HaMachshava are distinctive, but even thinking something theoretically is still an actual Machshava, as opposed to Machshava Stima, which is a thought that someone has not yet spoken, so to speak. And all of a Machshava means Yidden Shadish is in that Madrege. Now keep in mind what I repeated at the introduction of today's class, that there's always two joining aspects. One is different levels of oisius, and the other is different levels of oir. So if you have machshava tata, the oir of machshava tata is an oir of metzias. If you have machshava ilah, the oir of machshava ilah is edelet, is higher. And when you have machshava stima, the oir that carries the machshava stima is even edelet. And when you say Yisrael olah b'machshava, you're referencing the Jewish people's neshamas as they exist on a level of machshava stima, and as they exist on a level of machshava stima, they're not at all separate from Elokus. The hainu, this means the lower thought is thinking what to say and do. The higher thought is thinking theoretical ideas. But whether you're talking about the lower thought or the higher thought, you're dealing with words that are separate from oil. What's the trademark of Atzilus? The menorah. You have oil and you have a wick and you have a fire. They're two separate entities, but they're in a state of harmony. Similarly, when you're thinking a thought or thinking an idea, there's a fusion of a light and thought, oisies. There is a harmony between them, but they're two separate things. Says that Rabbi on line 406, both of these levels, Machshava Tata and Machshava Allah, parallel Atzilus. Even the higher thought, which is not thinking about what to say or thinking to what to do, but thinking an idea theoretically, is Sachakol B'chinas Bina. It's Bina of Atzilus. Which is the idea of Hanar Ayetami Eden. It's no longer Eden. It's no longer a level of godliness, which is so mysterious and so secret that like Yossi is a Hakika, but it's the river which is manifest and revealed. A thought never rests, like a river continues to flow, but it's defined by its actual volume, by its mitzias, and not by its theory. Though it comes from Eden, which is the idea of Chochmei law, but as it comes on into the Nor, it comes on into Bina, it's a mitzias, and that's Eisis of Machshavei law. Says the Rebbe on line 409, Omnam Inyan Olo b'Machshavah. When you refer to the Jewish people's souls, and you say Yisrael Olu b'Machshava, that they're in the Madrege Bechinas Ayenish Machshava, the highest level of Machshava, you're talking about Machshava Bechinas Chochmas Timah Darachampen is the level of Chochma which is mysterious and secret, the way it's in Kesed. Shalamayla Mayla Michochmei La Datzilus, which is higher and higher still than Chochmei La Datzilus. Kidil Il, like we learned 2 weeks ago, Barichas at length, and the idea of Shtei Kachala b'Machshava. Hashem says, "Be quiet, don't ask any questions because it cannot be explained." But not because there's no explanation, but because the explanation cannot come down into words. So you're dealing with letters, which are like the marshal of fiery coal, where the fuel and the fire are one, not just harmonious, but one. And the ideas, the oir, and the oisius that carry those ideas are one. It's the idea of eisius hachakiko, and that's the pshat, chochmas timo. V'imkein, and accordingly, omram zal. When it says in Chazal, all over Machshava, when the Jewish people enter into the Eibishter's thought, Hainu, this refers to the idea, Shesherish Nishmasam, that the root of the Yiddish Nishama, Mushish is rooted, V'nimshach, and is drawn. Mebechinas Machshava Stimad Arachame, from the mysterious and secret thought, the way it is in Kesed, Shalamayla Michachmo Obina Datzilus, higher than a Chachmo Obina of Tils. That means to say, a Yiddish Nishama exists before it exists. How could a Yiddish Nishama exist before it exists? And of course, the meaning of existence is distinct, separate identity. The neshama, the way it exists, the madrega of machshava, stima, is not distinct and not separate from elokus, but even as it's unified with elokus, it's a metzias of a neshama on this madrega. So now the Rebbe says, using Yisrael all over machshava as a model, that there's a concept of the Jewish people existing in the Eibishter's thought in a way that they don't really exist. In other words, they're not separate from elokus, they're one with him. This explains this pasuk of Yeshua about Be'ever HaNor. It's not just a technical detail that the Jewish people came from the other side of the river, but it's referring to something very, very mystical. Like I said to you before, the middle Rebbe discussed this at length in Maamar Pesach and Shara Emunah. This is the significance of this announcement. That the Eibishter himself has to tell them that the beginning of the Jewish people is on the other side of the river. This is not a geographical idea, but rather, this means, their oves, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yankov, where the Jewish people are rooted, is nimshach mebechinas, that comes from that level, shalamayla mebechinas no, harayetze me'edan shebechinas bina. The source of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yankov's neshama is from Kesed. And Eived HaNor doesn't mean a physical river, it means a metaphysical river, that Avraham, Yitzchak, Yankov's neshamas come from the madrega which is higher than the nahar. Nahar is bina, and bina is machshavei Allah. Where taka, the light and the letters are one, but they're not one in a way that they don't exist, but they're one in a way that they reveal something. The shadish of the ovis is from Kesed, me'ever hanor, which is chachmas timo. Line 415, ki pirush be'ever hanor, the meaning of the other side that Tzei Nalema means. Be'ever hasheni, the opposite side, kish ever hanor, when you cross over a river. On that opposite side of the river, that's where Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yankov sit. This doesn't mean physically, but spiritually. Where did the neshamas of the ovis come from? The root of the neshamas of the ovis is from Kesed, which is higher than Atzilus. There's a curtain, a screen which separates him Kesed and Atzilus. Higher than that curtain, which the ovis exists. As it says in Likutei Torah, which we learned years ago, that Vayelech Avram, right? Avram is Seichel Anel Mikol Rayin. Avram has nothing to do with the world. And then he has to come down from Avram into Avraham, to come from Kesed into the lower words. If you're familiar with the Torah, in Lech Lecha, you know that in Lech Lecha and Torah, he speaks about the Parsha, V'evdila Pareches. Because the whole idea is that Avram is coming from higher than the Parsha to lower than the Parsha, and in Parsha 8, in Torah and Lech Lecha, it's spoken about at length. Here the Alter Rebbe references it, that even though the neshamas of the Ovis are Chesed, Gevurah, and Teferes of Atzilus, but you should know me'ever hanor, they come from higher than Atzilus. And of course, there's several points here. The first point is you shouldn't think that Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yankov are limited to Atzilus; they come from Kesed. And second of all, that when they come from Kesed into Atzilus, the idea is they're bringing Kesed into Atzilus. Meaning, even though they're going from Bilti Metzias to Metzias, they're going from Eisias Achakisi to Eisias Aksiva, they're going from K'teres to Meneda, but it isn't that they're going away and letting go of and diminishing what they are in their source, but to the contrary, they're bringing their source forward into Atzilus, and from Atzilus into the lower worlds. So in line 418, the pshat is as follows. It is known that Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yankev, and Bechinas Chagas. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yankov, of course, are Chesed, Gevurah, and Teferes respectively. Omnam Shashim, Bechinas Chagas, the Yarech. The real source of the Ovis is Chesed, Gevurah, Teferes, and Kesed. And these two ideas of Chesed, Gevurah, Teferes, and Atzilus, and Chesed, Gevurah, Teferes, and Kesed are inyan Turi Nehera v'Turi Chashecha. Illuminated mountains and dark mountains. Haniska Bezerah, which is mentioned in the Zohar. In Chassidus in general, when they talk about mountains, they either see them as Kedusha or as Klippa. The position that mountains represent Klippa has to do with the idea of separateness. Turi de Peruda, it's called. Because the earth, the globe, the crust of the earth, The Gemara says, Sadna de Arachadu, the blanket of the earth is one. And mountains, mountain ranges which protrude from the earth, separate themselves from the flat surface of the earth, and that's why they represent Klippa. On the other hand, mountains also represent Kedusha, because they're higher than the earth. And there's two madreges in mountains which represent Kedusha, mountains which reveal a higher light, and mountains which are so high that they hide their light. And this is the difference between Atzilus, which is called Turi, Nehera, illuminated mountains, and Keser, which is called Turi, Chashecha, black mountains. The Hainu. Chagas, Atzilus, Niketuri, Nehera. The three Midas of Atzilus are mountains of light, they're the emotions, which come from the mind, Vayizbanus, and the contemplation. When one thinks about the Eibishter, has love and fear. And of course the point is, love and fear that come from the intellect is intellectual love and fear. In other words, it's limited love and fear, and therefore it represents mountains which reveal godly light. Line 423, there's a different kind of love that doesn't come from the mind, it comes from the soul. It's called black mountains. Shemamid, it's attacking the human emotions, but haklul baratzn, as they're spoken through will, which is infinite, it's beyond logic, like the idea of the idea that Hashem says silence, this is what entered into my thought, in other words, it cannot be explained. And this idea that the Ovis come from Keser, the Post Atzilus, is the concept of the Gimel Yodis, Yada Gedel, Yada Chazaka, and Yada Rama. Now, I didn't research this sufficiently, but in some places, Yada Gedela is Midas, Yada Chazaka is Chochma, Yada Harama is Keser. But from later on in this Maimon, it seems that perhaps it's Faket. Yada Gedela is Keser. Yada Chazaka would be Chochma. Yada Ram would be the lower level, but I don't know. But the bottom line is that the three Yadas are three levels: Midas, Chochma, and Keser. Ukeneda, as it is known, Shebechin is Shebekesed, Shebechin as Chesed, the Gvur, the Arecham. Levels of Midas and Keser, Mislap Shebava, come down into Chochma and Bina. Then they come down to Midas of Atzilus. Those are three levels: Keser, Chochma, Bina, and Midas. Yada Gedeli, Yada Chazaka, Yada Ram. And the idea is that even though they're descending from a higher level to a lower level, they're bringing the higher level down. The notion of feelings for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which don't come from the mind, they're very much a part of the neshama. They're very deeply connected and embedded in the subconscious. The canal, as we discussed earlier, Shebekesed and Shaychas Chalkas Adayin, the way things are in Kesed, everything is one. But in a Yiddish and neshama, there's a love and fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is not coming from the mind, but coming from the soul. And therefore the Pasuk says, line 429, V'zehu, and this is the Pshat, you should know your ancestors come from Kesed. In other words, they have nothing to do with this world. I brought them into this world. I brought them down from Avram to Avraham, from no relationship with this world to yes relationship with this world, so that you should be their descendants. I led them to the land of Canaan. And he translates Pirush Eretz Canaan. The land of Canaan goes on Bechinas Malchus. Because the word Eretz, of course, means will or land. And the word Canaan means a businessman, a seicher. Loshen Tager v'seicher, like a merchant and a salesperson. V'loshen hachna. The word Canaan also means submission. In other words, the idea that you take the Ovis that are so far removed from the world and you bring them all the way down to the level of Birurim, which is the mystical parallel for business. What's the Kabbalistic parallel for doing business? Elevating sparks. Buying and selling and making a profit of Ruchniya's Dikah sparks. And the Alter Rebbe says the meaning of Yeshua ben Nun's words is Shehim Shechas Ha'avis, that Yeshua is telling the Jewish people that Hashem is telling them that He brought forward the Avis Mishar Sham Shebever An-Nahar, from the root opposite the river, from higher than Atzilus, lated Lamata B'chol Atzilus, to descend through Atzilus, Adam Malchus till Malchus of Atzilus, but it doesn't even stop there. Kedei Lislabish B'biyad, they eventually come down to the lower three worlds, Begufim, in their bodies, Be'elam Azeh, in this world. Levare B'durir Apach, to bring a clarity to the 248 sparks Shenaflu B'biyad, and the Eibishter is being Moisa Nefesh, the Ovis, from the highest of the high to the lowest of the low, to fulfill the Eibishter's purpose. And that's why it's a big deal that Yeshua is saying to the Jewish people, Keyamar Hashem, we just came into Eretz Yisrael, as did your ancestors, understand where they came from and where they're coming to. And of course the Nimshal is they're no longer in the Midbar, they're no longer going to live a Ruchniya's Dikah life, they're going to live in the so-called real world and have to be Esek and Birudim, just like their ancestors who came Yever and Noah. And of course, he concludes on line 434, this descent is for the sake of an ascent. What's the ascent? To elevate the sparks, nitzutz and sparks, the shloshim according to their root. Avram bechinas Ava, Yitzchak bechinas Yeda, Yanka bechinas Rachmanas. So we had three statements. The first one was why you say that the neshama is first Tahira and then Barasa. The second is Vayemer Yeshua be'ever Anor. What's the big deal? Do it came on the opposite side of the Nahar? And the third one is Yisrael all over Machshav. And the Rebbe explained that the whole point is that the Jewish people exist before they exist. All over Machshava be'ever Hanor. Tahira before Barasa. That the neshama exists on a level of oneness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is like ACS HaChakika. But just like in Torah, there's a level of Torah which is one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is ACS HaChakika, the Luches. And since we say that Tlas Kishnim is Kashon, Dabada, neshamas also have three things, including a level of a Yiddish and neshama, which is so one with Hashem, is not separate at all. Says the Rebbe on line 437, that a Yid has to reach into his neshama, call out the level of the neshama which parallels Bechukosei, Chakika. And again, there's two aspects, that the oisies are atzmiyim, and the oir is the oir of achtos, and as a result, telech, shebechinas halicha mimata lamayla, when a yid expresses the level of the neshama called chakiki, he's able to move from a lower level to a higher level, and he says, befrat ha'ikir, aydemidas harachmanas, bechinas nachla bli mitzarim, v'chulu, specifically the mid of Yankov Avinu, more than Avram and Yitzchak, and we're going to leave it alone. Concludes the Rebbe on line 441, v'zeo gam kan inyan neshama shemsat b'teheni. That's the pshat, that before a neshama is created, it's already pure. And of course the question was, how could you be pure before you were created? Kihine, because there's a level of neshama that exists before it's separate. Bechin as sharsham, the root of the neshama is be'ever anar, before the river. Hainu bechinas eis, is a chakika canal, the neshama exists with a keli and an oir, which is one with Elokus, not just in a state of harmony, but in a state of unity. Of Bechin is Machshavas Tema, which is called Golav, Galif, V'B'Tehiri Allah, which learned about in the earlier classes. And the Neshama exists part and parts with Elokus on a level of Chakika. And therefore, there is El Pirush Tahiri, there's a concept of the Neshama being pure before it's created. Shanim, Shacham Bechinas Tahiri, we Lord descends from the higher clarity. Mamish, Inyan Be'ever Anor, Yashva V'Seichem, from the other side of the river. Just like the Ovis come from Kesed, every Yiddish in Neshama also comes from Kesed. That's the concept of Tahirihi. And then he continues on line 445. And then, when it descends, Canaan, and he was taken all over the land of Canaan, which is the concept of Ata Barasa, which is Bria, Yitzarta, which is Yitzira, Bechin is the Shtashlas, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, Acha, Nafachtabi, which goes on Asiya. And of course, Veishtal Shalazu, the Neshama's descent, lower than the level of Tahirihi, Haina Bechinas Eisias Aksav, it's like written letters, and of course I'm going to add that you also have the Eisias of Teirah Shabal Peh. Eisias Aksav is Atzilas. And Eisias of Teirah Shabal Peh is where the Neshama comes down to the lower worlds, Ragleh, Yerdes Meis, it's involved in Helam Vehested and in Klipa and in so on. Line 448, Nimtza, thus, Yesh Bi Yisrael Gamken Beis Madreges, Mitzad Sharshan. Just like there's two levels of Teirah, and like I said earlier, there's really more than two levels. But as far as our conversation is concerned, there's two levels of Teirah. The same is true, two levels of Neshamas Yisrael. Number one, Tehirahi, how the Neshama is pure, which is Hei Bechinas Eisies, HaChakika, how the Neshama is carved letters. And number two, Umitzadish Tal Shalusan Lamat, how the Neshama goes away from the state of Tehiri, to be in a state of Bechinas Brasa, which is B'riya, Yitzarta, which is Yitzira, and Nefachtabi, which literally means blown, which is Asiya. Zehu Inyan Eisies Aksav, how they're written. Line 451 now. And this is a short little avoidedik mashal. We just explained that when a neshama comes down from a higher level to a lower level, it's not like it's losing the higher level. It's descending to a lower level, but bringing the higher level with it. And as a consequence, even as we are in a neshama baguf, we can serve Hashem on all the different levels. So he says now, 451, how do you have both of these in a yid's life? In other words, in a neshama lamata is taka brasa yitzarta nefachta, but the tahira is still here. The olav machshava is still here. The be'ever anor is still here. How is it in avodas Hashem? It's very simple. Kiyesh bechinas hava. There's a level of lav adam shachas bechinas habina v'das b'dul savai. which comes from understanding the greatness of Hashem intellectually, and the midas that come from seichel. This is Eisias Aksiva. The truest idea of love is when it doesn't come from the mind, but from the neshama directly. And we see in fact the willpower of a Jew in his service for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the love that he has for HaKadosh Baruch Hu is stronger. It's far deeper than what a person can understand and justify intellectually, because it's coming from the soul which is higher than the mind, and it brings that I. From Tanya chapter 18, the most callous, the most careless, the most lighthearted of Jews, Hashem is prepared to sacrifice his life for the sanctity of God's name. And Alter Rebbe says, Meisrim nafsham alarev, in the vast majority of cases. And in the Frierdiker Rebbe's Basel Lagan, he takes the alarev out, that all Yiddish kinder, even Kalsha Bakal, Meisrim nefesh kiddush Hashem shalei, mitaderech hayis bonus klal, and there's no way to explain their Mesiras Nefesh based on their intellect. They're not smart enough. So where does the Mesiras Nefesh from a Poshet Yid, from a Kalsha Bakalam come from? The answer is the Pintel Yid, which doesn't pass through the mind at all. Nimtzatz Aviyas, She'etzem Haratzon B'chol Nefesh L'Yishem. This will, which every Yiddish neshama has to the Eibishter, Zeu L'mayla Me'adas, has nothing to do with their intelligence. It looks like it's passing through their intelligence because they think about it. And therefore, you have to think to reveal the Ahava. But it's not that you have to justify the Ahava by thinking about it. You have to think about it just to trigger it. Once the Seichel triggers this will, it's Lamayla Me'adas. It's beyond Seichel altogether. So you have to hate and avoid it. This is Mesiras Nefesh. You have Bros and avoid it, which is Ahava, which is based on Seichel. Line 461. We're ready to finish the Maamar now. This is the Pshat. In Bechukosei, when you serve Hashem on a level of Chakika, and the Neshama, you become a Mahalach. Bechukim shechakakti lachem, using the laws that I gave you. But in context, it means the level of Yiddishkeit which is carved, where we're not connecting to Hashem through a struggle or through a peace, but we're revealing that we're oneness with Hashem. Hainu, which is in other words, the same place that the Ovis come from, we also come from. And a Yid could be in Bechukosei, serving Hashem from that level of oneness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the Ovis. Al-Kain as a result. They're able to shepherd their sheep. To bring them all the way back to this source, which is called carving. In other words, the Ovis are the shepherds, and we're the sheep. But because we also have that madrega in us, they can raise us up to that level. Says the Alter Rebbe v'os telechu. Then you go into motion. B'bchinas mahalach. The neshama standing still means its avodah is predictable, its avodah is predetermined, and its avodah is limited. Hiluch means it's unpredictable, it's not predetermined, and it's infinite. Bilti shir ugvul. And we discussed this in the beginning of this series of Maamar Eim. We did the first class that malachim move great distances, and they're called oimdim. The Neshamas move tiny distances, and they're considered mahalchim because of the relativity of their levels and their expectations. The mashal that Alter Rebbe gave in the Gersa Tshuva Pedikut Beis is from the shadow, moving an inch on earth and moving millions of miles in the heavens. Ukmei Shekosov, it says in the pasuk about Mashiach, and we're applying this pasuk to every Yid who serves a Hashem on the level of Chakika, in other words, on the level of Yechida, if you will, just to be interesting. The Mashiach within each one of them, Hine Yaskel Avdi. My servant is going to be Yaskel Yod of Anisav Agava Me'ed. 5 Madreges. Me'ed means even higher than other Medishan Yechido. Pirish Me'ed is Bligvul. Me'ed means infinity. Haine Bechines Ein Sof, which is Ein Sof. Right, as you know, the word Me'ed and the word Adam are the same letters. But Adam connotes limitation, order, and reason. And Me'ed is infinity. It's going to be revealed fully after Mashiach comes. And how is this? When we love with all of our might, when we reveal our neshama, which is called our Bechukosei, we become b'chinas hiluch. Then we move from place to place and from level to level. B'teisvis air an additional light every single day. It's like the idea of Yid serving Hashem, and in his service of Hashem, he's reacting to Hashem. Versus a Yid who's serving Hashem, and Hashem is reacting to him. But in this case, Hashem is reacting to him is called Yehi Ratzon, which is called in Chassidus Oisim Ritzeini Shal Makom. Every time he's doing a mitzvah, he's creating a new Ratzon, which is the concept of Bechol Meidecha, which is the concept of Chakika, which is being discussed here. And now the Alter Rebbe says something very interesting. V'chol echad muchrach lavei alamitis sharshu makere. This is like a va'ata tetzava kind of word. Every Jew has to reach this. But the pasuk says, "In Bechukosei, if you serve Hashem on the level of Yechida, Chakika, Teherahi, Olu b'machshava, me'ever anar, pinta l'yid, you'll become a mahalach." Now the Alter Rebbe says every single Jew must reach this madrega of revealing the Yechida. Bechinas chagaz da'arek, hanicha b'chesei. Why? Ki l'yidach v'menu nidach. No Jew will be left behind. Now, how does everybody understand the words ki l'yidach v'menu nidach? The simple taich of ki l'yidach v'menu nidach is Hashem doesn't let a Yiddish neshama get lost. Here the Alter Rebbe teaches ki l'yidach v'menu nidach. No Jew can fail to reach Yechida. Mimenu mamish. L'yidach. The idea that no Jew will be lost is so deep that mimenu nidach. In other words, even if every Jew is connected to Hashem, but Yidden do not reveal the Yechida, that means they're nidach mimenu. And le yidach mimenu nidach means that every Jew has to reveal the Yechida shebenefesh, the madrega of Chakika, the madrega of Eved Anah, the madrega of Teheri, the madrega of Allah b'machshava, mimhusei vatzmusei yizbarach, v'im lei b'dei razeh. And if a Jew serves Hashem, Teirah, mitzvahs, and the whole thing, but he's lacking the Chakika, Yovei begilgul b'deirach, it'll come back in another gilgul, to Magali Chiddush Benefesh. This is a whole new Layidach Mendah, Nevata Tetzava Maimed, right? The Rebbe says a Chiddush. Normally we say, what's Yechida? A Yid nicht, a will nicht, a convert, upgrades and forget Lachkeit. The Jew doesn't want to be separate from Elikus. What's Vata Tetzava? Then if a Yid knows it's a pin in the Dachas Be'ela, but there's a Chasad and Gil Elikus, he's Kosas Lamoir. Because every Yid needs to have the Gili of Yechiddush Benefesh. And the Lashon Harav is Gila lakus negela etzem it's a Yossi. Here the Alter Rebbe says the same idea. Lo yidach menir doesn't mean you're not going to become lost and assimilated. Gila lakus negela etzem it's a Yossi. You have to reveal your yechid. Line 471. Befrat bedara de malka Mashiach. Particularly in our generation of Mashiach. She's al lu klol listen nisham yisal bebechinas made. We're going to be raised up to the level of yechid. And of course, the Alter Rebbe is talking after Mashiach comes. But it also includes the avoid of the Mesiris Nefesh of our generation. And by the way, in the Maamar from the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he talks about the door of the Ikvus of the Mashiach, and he brings, of course, the famous Torah from the Rebbe Rashabitz in the Maamar in Ayin Tes, that he says that Va'ish Meisha Anu Me'ed Mikol Adam Asher Apnei Hadam, and Meisha Rabbeinu saw the door of the Ikvus of the Mashiach and he was humbled. So the Rebbe Rashab and the Frierdiker Rebbe talk about Mesiris Nefesh. The Rebbe quotes that same idea. For Meisha Anu Me'ed Mikol Adam Meisha Rabbeinu saw the Yidden of the generation makes the Mashiach and he was humbled. But he doesn't say Mesiris Nefesh. He says Al Yevash Mepnei HaMaligim, not to be embarrassed by scoffers. And he argues that Al Yevash Mepnei HaMaligim is the same madrega as Mesiris Nefesh. And Meisha saw Yidden of our generation not being mispol from their environment and serving Hashem with the preciseness and with the Hidur Mitzvah and with the Yidur Shamayim and with the Simcha and with the Chayes, and he was humbled by them. So before Mashiach you also have the Gili of Yechida, but this is in a strugglesome circumstance. After Mashiach comes, Ki b'meisa Mashiach atchias ha-mesim. From when Mashiach comes, atchias ha-mesim. Yi aved mitzvahs maisis, we're going to do mitzvahs, physical mitzvahs. Rakshi yi shleimus avoid, to be perfect, right? V'sham nasa v'necha k'mitzvahs etzenecha. The perfect is going to be, the person is going to be whole, the animal is going to be whole, the world is going to be whole, so the mitzvah is going to be perfect. L'chein oz yigavei me'ed madrega b'chukosei mamish yechida, and therefore it's going to be telech. And then comes another idea which I'm not sure I understand. Line 474. So im bechukosei telech. When you reveal the level of the neshama, which is one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which Beklala says yechida, you become a mahalach. Says the Rebbe Vehire 474. Masha Omar im bechukosei telech. The word im, if, when you will walk in my chuk. Right? You simply could have said bechukosei telech. What's the im? So the Chazal say, ein im elo lashon tachnunim. Hashem says, please be a mahalach. Please serve Hashem on a level of chakik. So the Alter Rebbe could have translated im bechukosei, don't suffice with serving Hashem on a level of ksiva and balpeh. You have to be chakika. It doesn't touch like that. He touches like this. The Jewish people should not find a way of being in motion only by using the three chakikas of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and no other method. And no other way. So Hashem is saying there's another way to reach Yechida. But in Bechukosei telechu, reach Yechida only through the three of us and not in a different path. And he doesn't explain what that is. You should reach Yechida using the path which was outlined for us by our Ovis, who come from Eved Anar, and not a different path, which I find very interesting. The Alter Rebbe doesn't explain it at all, simply states. And I don't know what the alternative would be. But I have a thought. You have in Tanya Perek Yud, Perek Nun, pardon me, this idea of Tagberes Avo, which is Tagberes Zav ala Kesef. This idea is that a Yid loves Hashem in the Neshama. And of course, loving Hashem in the Neshama can have lower levels from Seichel, and higher levels, higher than Seichel. And then you have a person who can will himself into loving Hashem where the love is not coming from the Neshama. The mashal for this is, in the Maamar Eim, is the love of a husband and a wife. The love that comes from the Neshama is the love of father and children. Why? Because father and children are the same Neshama, the same essence. But a husband and wife are not allowed to be related. They're dafka separate. So the love of a husband and a wife is a love of two separate entities. And yet the love can become so strong that it's stronger even than the love of a father and his sons. Why? Because you're willing yourself into a connection to Hashem, which is as strong as the Neshama connection, and it's coming from will. And in Chassidus you have this idea. You can love Hashem based on your Neshama, and you can love Hashem by willing yourself into loving Him outside of your Neshama. So the Pasuk is saying, Im Bechukosei telechu, I would rather that you have your love for the Eibishter based on the Neshama than using a different method. But Tzarachi and Godlam Pnei Sibis, I just told you a Pshat B'derech Hefsher. There's a number of problems with the Pshat I just gave, including, of course, that this Madreg of Ahava, of Perek Nun, of Tagberes Zav ala Kesef is considered a very special thing. So Tzarachi. Now we move on line 479. Ve'es mitzvesai tishmeiru. Ve'es mitzvesai tishmeiru means that when you're flying in the heights of heavens, you get to be down to earth. You're reaching Yechida, you need Kalim. But you know that Bechukosei already includes two things. I've told you several times tonight that every level of the Neshama is proud by a level of Oisius. And in Bechukosei telechu means you're relating to Hashem on a level of Neshama, where you're one with Him. And in that level of connection to Hashem, where you're one with Him, there's already an Eid and Kalim. But mitzvesai tishmeiru means you have to bring this connection down to the lower levels of the Neshama. To say it in different words, you have to have a shmira. Yechid is very powerful. Makifim are very powerful. Spiritual experiencing that are beyond the mind are very powerful. But what prevents them from going crazy? What prevents them from becoming another than Aviyu? What prevents you from becoming from a Yechen and Ken Godel? What prevents you from becoming so holy that you become Rachman al-San Tzduki? And the answer is Bittel. And that's mitzvah tishmeiru, Pirush, Hashmida, what guards. That Kadesha Yiskayim Ahil to Bechol Meidach. That this Mesiras Nefesh of Bechol Meidach Yechida, which is Im Bechukosei telechu, for it to be productive and constructive and holy and correct, B'tfilah, when you're Mesa Nefesh and davening, Huayidei mitzvahs, is by doing mitzvahs afterwards. One of the most important, and you can never, Ein Game in Olav, you can never say it enough times, distinctions of Yiddishkeit is Hamayis Hu Ha'ikir. The Eibush is not impressed with your spirituality and with your intellectualism and with your sensuality. He wants mitzvahs. Why? Because mitzvahs ground. Mitzvahs, for various reasons, including the Bittel and Kabbalah sale aspect, affect that this is not a selfish endeavor which can go crazy, but it's a spiritual worship which is healthy and sustainable. Huayidei ha-mitzvahs, which are the mitzvahs. Shem b'chidas kelim, mikelim sheinim, that the different kinds of vessels, la'edein say baruch Hu, for the infinite light. Now, later in this shtickele, the Rebbe is going to talk about ma'isa mitzvahs and kavanas mitzvahs. So I want to say it now briefly. Remember, the premise is that Bechukosei already is two things. The way the Neshama is one with Hashem as Oid and Oisius. Mitzvesai tishmeiru means that you have to bring that down into Atzilus and into the lower worlds by doing mitzvahs. But there's a difference between bringing it down into Atzilus and bringing it down into the lower world. Because in Atzilus the key is Yechudim, and the lower worlds the key is the Ma'isa HaMitzvah. And Yechudim is Kavona. So Mitzvesai tishmeiru includes also the idea of bringing down the mitzvahs into the meditation, the specific meaning of each mitzvah, which allows you or helps you understand why you need all of the mitzvahs. And even though that's about Kavanas HaMitzvah, not about Ma'isa HaMitzvah, compared to Mesiras Nefesh, B'chol Me'edecha, it's grounding. So again, the way the Rebbe is going to explain Ves Mitzvah Tishmeira means you have to have the kavanah, the yichud, for each mitzvah different, which is the madrega of Atzilus, and that alone is grounding, brings down the Bechukosei Telechu. But on a lower level than that, which our Maamar doesn't discuss, it's the physical act of the mitzvah itself. V'zehu, when he brings a pasuk, v'yein malchus rav ki adam melech, you have in the Megillah Esther, that Achashverosh, of course, made a feast, and he provided wine. And the wine was meant to intoxicate. And of course, we learn in Chassidus that wine goes on Yena Shal Teira, on Seides HaTeira, Yayin, Nichnas Yayin Yotzasei, the secrets of Teira revealed through wine. And the Pasuk says the king gave lots and lots of wine, but in addition to the Yein Malchus Rav Ki Yad HaMelech, there also has to be Kelim Mikelim Shenim, to hold that wine, to hold that Seid, to hold that Yena Shal Teira. Pirat Aderech Moshe Yayin, just like wine. It's impossible to hold without a vessel. Using a different analogy, you have light being sustained, held by a wick. No wick, no fire. The same is true in the neshama, that in order for the neshama to remain in the body, there has to be a healthy body. The power of vision is in the eye. The power of auditory power, the power of hearing is in the ear. If there's something done to damage the eye or the ear, God forbid, you cannot see. Even though you're seeing with the neshama, but the neshama allows you to see through the eye. And if the eye is not a good conductor of the keich of the neshama to see, the power of vision leaves the eye and you cannot see. And if God forbid the ear has been hurt, so even though you're hearing with the neshama, but you're hearing with the neshama as being mislabish in the ear, and when the ear is hurt, you can't hear anymore. Vashmiya me'ez na derech moshel. V'chein al derech line 288 Yuvan mitzvahs say that we have 248 mitzvahs and we have to do them all. Ramach gave him 248 different limbs and we need different vessels. There's a lot of Kabbalah sale, there's a lot of down-to-earthness in our daily life as a Jew, which grounds the Bechukosei. There's other vessels of Atzilus, like Kabbalah Shachas Air, to bring down that light, which is coming down by Bechinas Keset Teracham with the air, the Madreg of Keset. Shehem, that the Teyaga Mudeye, the Keset, the Teracham with the air should come down to Terag mitzvahs, the Reise Shem mitzvahs, the Rabban 620. Is the 613 biblical mitzvahs. And the 7 rabbinic mitzvahs. Sheyum Shech V'Yis Pasha, that the light of Keset should be drawn and descend Bekelim Ve'varim, the vessels and organs, limbs of the Eirampin, and of course eventually Yumsham Yumshach B'Bidi Yitzir Nasiyah. So the Maamar says, Bechukosei Telechu is unbelievable. Mesiras Nefesh is unbelievable. Yechid is unbelievable. B'chol Me'edich is unbelievable. The sustaining of that is Ves Mitzvah Tishmeira. Or built Kelim, if there would be no vessels, the air would come and go away. Like you have the story in Tanakh of Kelim Reikim Maltamiti V'Gamer, that this Isa Shunamis needed a bracha, and Elisha told her to pour oil, but it had to go into something. And the minute there was no more vessels, Vayamed Hashalom Ein Oid Keli Vayamed Hashalom. Line 493 V'Zeh, and this is the pshat that Yitaka have a Yein Malchus. The wine of the king, which is ha'er shemei rav ki yad melech, which is shining from Kesed, who bechinas yad hagedele chesed yarech. Over here you see the yad hagedele is chesed. But vayidei shenichnis yayin zebiyad, the wine enters into the person. Yotza seid v'av, and Mr. Teres reveals the secret and the hidden love, which is from Kesed shashor shema bechinas ovis, which comes from the madrega of the ovis. Asher shor shema bechinas ubever andar, they come from the madrega of the canal. Says the Rebbe, line 496. There has to be vessels. And the vessels affect that the Mesiras Nefesh shouldn't be running from this world, but down into this world of Teirah and Mitzvahs. Shabahem Yumshech Yein Malchus, which brings down the king's wine, Li'yisrav Ki Yad HaMelech, to be very, very abundant. V'zehu, and this is the Pshat Ves Mitzvah Tishmeira, you have to guard my mitzvahs. Piru, that mitzvahs, Lashon Tzav, Savis Chabros, mitzvah, connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But in this case, mitzvahs not only connect us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu to us, to the world. Only when a light comes down into a vessel, then it's tied and connected to us and to the world. When the light of godliness is supernal. Even when it's about the regel of Chakika and gold, of Galif of Chulo, you just one with the Eibishter, but in this world it does not exist. And therefore the Pasuk says, V'zehu. The first thing you have to have is Bechukosei Telechu. to serve Hashem on the level of Yechida, and you become a Mahalach, but Tefillah when you daven. And the revealing Ava V'Yireh V'Seder Rachmim, which is higher than Seichel, Shem Aliyas Ad Bechinas Chakike Eliena, it is the Kesem. However, what makes it sustained, V'Hainu Davka, this is Davka Ayadevis Mitzvah Saite Shmeiru. You have to do mitzvahs Shema Kelim, which are the vessels. Lam Shachas V'Gili Eidos Hanal, to drawing down and revealing these lights. Shayadei HaKeli, only when there's a vessel Yiskayim Be'er, the light lasts and it's sustained over long periods. V'Hainu, because Tzadach Li is Talmid, there must always be B'chinas Allah V'Amshacha, to go up and to bring down B'chinas Aseh V'Sheva, therefore you have to have the Keli. So now we touched two parts of the pasuk, Im Bechukosei Telechu, and Ve'es Mitzvah Saite Shmeir. What says later? Line 506, Vaydei Zevenos No Ha'aretz Yavula, the earth is going to give its produce. Ha'aretz means Malchus Datzilus, coming from the lower worlds. And Nas No Ha'aretz Yavula means Titein Yavula Ba'alos Man, that Apachnitutz. When a Yid serves Hashem, bringing Yechida down, and a Mislabeshet in Kelim of mitzvahs, this goes down into the lower worlds and elevates sparks. Nasna Aras Yivula means that the lower worlds give back their godliness to the Yebishter. But then there is a Sarusa de Latata, a Sarusa de Layela. So the way it works is you reach Yechida, you bring Yechida down into Atzilus, and it raises up the Birurim from the lower worlds into Atzilus as well, and then reveals a higher light from Atzilus. Eitz HaSada, the trees of the field, goes on Eitz HaChaim. In other words, it goes on Atzilus, gives fruit, godliness which is drawn down as a schar, for the godliness which has been raised up from the lower world through Birurim, which happened as a consequence of the Im Bechukosei Telechu and the Es Mitzvah Saite Shmeiru. And say Baruch godliness should descend Lias V'Salachti V'Teichem, Hashem should walk amongst us. The Madrega V'Eitz HaChaim, which is Atzilus, Shem Yisham Yom Shchon Neshamas Yerim, which should bring down special Neshamas and a crime pre Tzaddik Eitz Chaim. 5:17 V'Tzivisi Es Bechukosei. And Hashem says, I'm commanding my bracha to come forward. Translates the Rebbe Birchas HaMitzvahs. And what's the Taj Birchas HaMitzvahs? Mitzvahs Riches Kavana. You don't just do it, you have a Kavana. This is what I told you before, that in our Maamar Eim, Mitzvah Saite Shmeiru is focusing on the Kavanas HaMitzvah. And the Kavana of the Mitzvah is a Kli for the Bechukosei. L'hamshach b'chen ha'eru klolos ha'gavana yatfilah shel kol yom. Kavana is the davening of every day. And this is the Pshat. Im Bechukosei Telechu is Tefillah. Tefillah is Mesiras Nefesh. And then come with Mitzvah Saite Shmeiru, which means doing mitzvahs. But for Derech Prata, we in Birchas HaMitzvahs. So you do a mitzvah, and along with the mitzvah you have a kavana. The kavana is represented by Birchas HaMitzvah, and even the kavana is a sufficient vessel to hold the Im Bechukosei which you're bringing down.